In 1943, a German pastor sat in a Nazi prison cell and wrote a letter that would become one of the most important observations about human nature ever made. He was not writing about evil. He was not writing about cruelty. He was writing about something he believed was far more dangerous than either. He was writing about stupidity. His name was Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He had personally conspired to assassinate Adolf Hitler. He had watched an entire nation, one of the most educated, most cultured, most scientifically advanced civilizations in history, embrace an ideology so obviously destructive that future generations would struggle to believe it had happened at all. And he did not blame malice. He blamed something worse. Bonhoeffer's argument was devastatingly simple. Stupidity, he said, is not an intellectual defect. It is a moral one. A stupid person is not someone who lacks intelligence. A stupid person is someone who has surrendered their judgment to a group, a leader, or a movement, and can no longer think independently, no matter how intelligent they are. This is the key distinction. You can have a high IQ, a university degree, an impressive career, and still be stupid in Bonhoeffer's sense, because his definition of stupidity has nothing to do with how much you know. It has to do with whether you are still capable of thinking for yourself. He observed that under the pressure of a rising political movement, otherwise rational people did not simply agree with the party line. They became unable to disagree with it. Their critical faculties shut down. Contradictions that would have been obvious a year earlier became invisible. Facts that disproved the ideology were not argued against. They were simply not seen. This was not ignorance. Ignorance can be corrected with information. This was something deeper. It was a failure of the person, not of the mind, and no amount of evidence could fix it, because the person had stopped processing evidence altogether. Bonhoeffer identified the mechanism with terrifying clarity. Stupidity, he said, is not something that happens to isolated individuals. It is a social phenomenon. It happens when people are absorbed into a collective, a movement, a party, a mob, a following, and their individual identity is replaced by the identity of the group. The moment a person joins the crowd, something changes. They stop evaluating claims on their own terms. They start evaluating them by whether the group accepts them. Truth becomes whatever the group says is true. Logic becomes whatever the group says is logical. And anyone who challenges the group is not merely wrong, they are a threat. Bonhoeffer watched this happen in real time. He watched professors, men who had spent decades training their minds to think critically, repeat propaganda without question. He watched doctors, people bound by oath to protect human life, participate in the categorization and destruction of people they had previously treated as patients. He watched pastors, men who preached love and compassion every Sunday, sign declarations of loyalty to a regime that was planning the systematic murder of millions. None of these people were born evil. Most of them were not even cruel. They were ordinary people who had stopped thinking. And that, Bonhoeffer argued, was more dangerous than deliberate wickedness. Because a wicked person can be resisted, exposed, fought, but a stupid person, in his definition, cannot be reached at all. They do not respond to argument. They do not respond to evidence. They do not respond to reason. They respond only to the voice of the group. This is the part that makes Bonhoeffer's theory so disturbing. He said that against stupidity, we are defenseless. Not because the stupid person is uneducated, not because they lack access to information, but because they have become disconnected from the process of evaluating information. Arguments bounce off them. Facts that contradict their position do not register. When you present evidence, they dismiss it. When you press them, they become irritated. When you corner them with logic, they do not concede. They retreat into slogans, catchphrases, and rehearsed responses that they have absorbed from the group. And here is what Bonhoeffer found most chilling. They are entirely convinced they are thinking for themselves. The stupid person does not feel manipulated. They feel enlightened. They believe they have seen through the lies that everyone else still believes. They experience their surrender to the group as liberation. This is why cults work. This is why propaganda works. This is why movements that are obviously destructive from the outside feel obviously righteous from the inside. The person inside the system cannot see the system. They are the system. Bonhoeffer made one more observation that separates his theory from simple social commentary. He said that stupidity is not caused by the people, it is caused by power. When power needs obedience, it does not educate, it does not reason. It creates the conditions in which independent thought becomes socially dangerous. It rewards conformity, it punishes dissent, not always through violence, sometimes through ridicule, exclusion, or the simple weight of consensus. The person who questions the group loses friends. The person who challenges the leader loses status. The person who refuses to repeat the slogan is treated as the enemy. Over time, the cost of thinking becomes higher than the cost of not thinking. And most people, not because they are weak, but because they are human, choose the path of least resistance. This is what Bonhoeffer witnessed in Germany. Hitler did not seize power by convincing every German that his ideas were right. He seized power by creating a social environment in which questioning his ideas became impossible. The rallies, the uniforms, the songs, the shared symbols, all of it was designed to create a collective identity so powerful that stepping outside it felt like stepping into a void. And it worked. Not on the weak, not on the ignorant, on everyone. Bonhoeffer wrote his theory about Nazi Germany. But read it again today and tell me it does not describe the world you live in. Social media has created the most efficient mechanism for collective stupidity in human history. Every platform is designed to sort people into groups, reinforce their existing beliefs, and punish deviation. Algorithms do not show you what is true. They show you what your group already believes. And the longer you stay, the more your individual judgment is replaced by the judgment of the feed. You have watched it happen. You have watched intelligent people, people you know, people you respect, adopt positions that contradict everything they said 5 years ago, not because they changed their minds through careful thought, but because the group changed its position and they followed. You have watched them repeat slogans they cannot explain, defend claims they have not investigated, and attack people they have never met, with absolute certainty and zero independent thought. And you have felt the pull yourself, the pressure to agree, the discomfort of holding a position that your feed does not support, the temptation to stay silent rather than risk disagreement, the slow, quiet death of your own judgment, replaced by the comfortable consensus of whatever algorithm has been assigned to manage your reality. Bonhoeffer would have recognized all of it. Bonhoeffer did not believe that education was the cure. He did not believe that more information would fix the problem, because the problem was never a lack of information. The problem was the surrender of the self to the group. The only cure, he said, was internal liberation. A person must recover their capacity for independent thought, not through argument, but through an act of personal responsibility. They must choose consciously and deliberately to think for themselves, even when it costs them. This is not easy. It has never been easy. In Bonhoeffer's time, it cost him his life. He was executed at Flossenbürg concentration camp on the 9th of April, 1945, 2 weeks before the camp was liberated. He was 39 years old. He had seen the stupidity of an entire civilization, named it, explained it, and refused to participate in it. And they killed him for it. The theory survives. The question is whether you will read it and recognize the pattern in the world, in your feed, in yourself, or whether you will scroll past it and let the algorithm decide what you think next. Bonhoeffer already knew what most people would choose. He wrote the theory anyway. If you made it this far, you think differently. Like and subscribe. We go deeper every week.